but Liam's been living in Karratha since 2010, and he's gone through both the ups and the downs of living in a regional community. He and his wife, Alison, were raising their two boys with limited support, and that's how he kind of came up with the Australian Dads Network, ADN, and that's how that came to form. It originated and grew from a need for a basic connection, nothing in particular other than companionship and connection, and only having one member in 2016, they've grown to 2,500 members in 2022, purely just from word of mouth. Liam has a passion and a real energy for supporting dads across Australia and in particular in regional communities. So he just wants all dads to thrive. That's why we thought he would be such a great speaker for positive parenting. So we just want to welcome Liam, and you're going to take over via Zoom. Awesome.
Hello. Thanks for the introduction. Appreciate it. Can you guys hear me okay? Everyone can hear me online, and yep, nod of the head. Awesome. Cool. I'm just going to share my screen really quickly with you guys. Little presentation here to run through. So here we go. Okay. So yes, my name's Liam Sorrell. Everything that was just said then is completely true. I started this little group, the Australian Dads Network, which has grown and thrived over many years now. And I'll just give you a bit of a rundown on where this all came from, what we do, and how I think we can really support dads across the country. So I'll just touch on a little bit of my story, how we got here, what we do, and really, yeah, why it is important that we do what we do. So just quickly to touch on, I've been in Karratha for 12 years, so really got a good finger on the pulse around what is needed in regional areas, I feel anyway. Dad of two boys, Reed and Keegan. They're 6 and 7 years of age. And my wife, Alison, came over from Canada, and we've been together since 2000, well, married since 2013. This has been recorded, so I had to make sure I got that right. The awards and accolades there, I just want to make a quick mention to, and an acknowledgement as well, that those awards, although I've got the little trophy in my office at home, it's an acknowledgement to the guys that are inside that community that we've developed in the Australian Dads Network. That's Australian Men's Health Forum Best Content and Community Builder Award. You can't build a community without people. It's as simple as that. And so, although I push the button on this community, it's the guys that are inside there that make it what it is. So that's what's really powerful about our work, and it's being acknowledged and rewarded in certain ways like this. All right, I know that's a confronting photo. My journey starts western suburbs of Melbourne, and when I turned 18, I grabbed that car, that maroon EB station wagon from my mum and dad, and I put my mattress in the back and I left. If anyone knows the western suburbs of Melbourne, you'll understand why. I travelled for many, many years, and during that time, I knew I was searching for something, but I didn't know what it was. And so I spent a long time on the road driving around. That photo there is in particular is in Coober Pedy in South Australia, which I did spend a little bit of time in. And I travelled a lot up and down the east coast of Australia. And one of the places that I did spend a lot of time at over the years is this place here. This is the Falls Festival in the Surf Coast of Victoria. Some of you guys may know or have heard of it. They have come over to WA as well to run the festival over there as well. But that festival in particular, I spent a number of years working at over the New Year's period, and that's 15,000 people there. And for me, that was the pinnacle of what I was searching for. I was just gobsmacked every time I went to this festival, and 15,000 people. I couldn't believe how, someone on stage could say one word, or a guitarist could strum one note, and 15,000 people would erupt and just be, all there for that same purpose. And that community vibe was that thing that I was searching for. Even talking about it now, it's giving me goosebumps. And that's what I thrived in. I thrived in those environments of music festivals, and I spent a lot of time. That was my turning point, I suppose, and spent a lot of time after that traveling around music festivals. I did throw my hand up and try some modeling. That didn't work. So I kept moving to music festivals. So this one in particular is a really important one for me. And again, another sort of critical turning point in my life. This festival here is called Folk Rhythm and Life, and that's a music and arts festival in Wangaratta in country Victoria. And before I first attended there, had been going for about a decade beforehand. And the founder of that, Hamish Skirmer, turned out to be one of my best mates. And I started working there for a number of years. There's one point in particular, was where I was standing by myself watching a band under a tent, very similar to this one. And for me, I was by myself, just happy watching, but this little Irish guy walked up next to me and he said, do you want a beer? And I was like, all right, sure, why not? That small encounter was what turned out to be one of the greatest mateships that I had. This guy, Nick, was just that person I thought was my big brother. You know, he was the guy that I wish I had as a brother moving through my life. I never had a brother. I got a younger sister. She's 4 years younger than me. And I always had this desire to have a bigger brother that I could learn from and ask questions about life and all those fun questions that you have. He turned into that person for me. And we spent the better part of 4 years traveling around, doing these music festivals, working just whatever jobs we could, just cruising around. And it was we shared all the stories, all of our conversations were raw and real. And that's myself and Nick there. And that's the when I think of Nick, those are the memories that I have of Nick. Just smiling, happy. He was always telling jokes. Always had a really good story of past experiences, and that's the memory that I have of him. In 2008, I got a phone call from Hamish, who's the guy that started that music festival, and he told me that Nick had suicided, and that was my first experience with something like that. And I didn't know how to go through the process. I didn't know what mental health was at the time, which is, you know, it's hard to say, I suppose. You know, it's one of those things that I thought I would know, but I didn't. And so I went through this grieving process, and what I learned from that was, you know, how isolating it must have been for him, and potentially that fear of judgment. I don't think I'll know, obviously, what was going through his mind and why that sort of frustration and those emotions of anger and that I went through during that time of, you know, why didn't we communicate this? How come, you know, he didn't feel like he was comfortable enough to share that stuff with me? When I went to the funeral up in Brisbane, I met up with his sister and asked her those questions. And it turned out that he had attempted before and that he had suffered with depression most of his life. And so, yeah, it was a really interesting moment in my life where I realized that, I sort of understood that there was potentially something as part of that grieving process. I went internal, and that potentially there was something in me that I needed to work on. And so for that, what I learned from that was that there was something that I could do to make it a bit easier for people to approach me. And so I went on this journey of commitment, and I made this commitment to Nick that I would not let anyone go past without having the option to be able to speak to me. I will do as much as I can to learn about mental health and understand how this process works for people so that they feel comfortable and I can create that safety for them to be able to communicate with me when they're in their darkest moments or anything in between. So that commitment is one of the big three things. If you can take three things out of this, commitment is one of those. Committing to people to make sure that they have some safe place to be able to communicate. Fast forward now, I continued traveling, ran out of money. I decided to sign up and become a scuba dive instructor in Airlie Beach in Queensland. And fortunately for me, across the table from that, in that classroom, there was a young Canadian girl who I thought was a bit of a right, and we hit it off, and we travelled around doing scuba dive instruction together, and she turned out to be the woman I ended up marrying, which is really awesome. She was in that same class there. So connection was one of those things that came from that for me. Scuba diving, obviously connecting with someone that turned out to be the love of my life, but also connecting with people. Being underwater with people where you cannot communicate via vocals was a really good turning point for being able to understand how to communicate and listen and just be able to support people in their stressful moments. You know, going underwater for the first time could be a really stressful moment for a lot of people, and it was. And being able to talk through this process with people and support them through this journey of breaking through some of the barriers of fear was another really important part of this journey. And connection, there's another second word that you take from this. Connection is that word, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. We ended up moving all the way over to Karratha. We got jobs lined up in Exmouth to be dive instructors down there, but we didn't make it. So in 2000, in Karratha and Brisbane on a forklift was pretty good money. So we stayed, and we've been there 12 years later. And it's been an amazing experience. Fast forward now to 2014. That's my firstborn now, Reed. And that's us in the hospital just after he was born. New dads or dads that are in the room or on Zoom will probably relate to this. Alison, when we left the hospital, left with a big bag of all these pamphlets with all the mums groups that she could join and all the support networks and massage certificates and all that kind of stuff that would be able to help her through her new mum journey. I walked out with two things, obviously, my son in a capsule, but fear, massive amount of fear. Fear of what I was getting myself into, fear of the unknown, fear of the simple things of getting home safely, that first drive with Bub in the car. But yeah, fear of not knowing what was to come and not having that support network around me. Me being from Melbourne, Alison being from Canada, we didn't have that network close by, and it was a real struggle. That first 6 months of having Reed was the hardest 6 months of our parenting journey by far. Reed suffered from what's called silent reflux, and some of you people may know what that is. It's a really challenging. It was a really challenging time for us because we didn't know for 6 months, and we went from GP to GP asking, why is our son not sleeping for more than 45 minutes at a time? And that whole period, the GPs just kept saying, that's just what babies do. Babies don't sleep, babies cry, you just got to get through it. And for us, not sleeping for 45 minutes, more than 45 minutes at a time for 6 months was, we were starting to doubt our abilities as parents as well. We're like, well, how are we going to get through this? If this is what it's like, how are we going to get through it? We were both really struggling. The emotions that were going through us during that time of fatigue was stress. We hit depression. I was a terrible leader at work, and we just didn't have the ability to cope. I was doing as much as I can to stay with Alison during that journey, and what we learnt from this process is another thing is communication. We really struggled because we worked together through this process, which we thought was the right thing to do. And turns out we just put ourselves both into a really dark place because we were trying to support each other through it, but in turn we both weren't sleeping, we both weren't coping. At that 6 month mark, we went to the pediatrician. He told us he had silent reflux. We got some formula from Woolies, believe it or not, and that first night he slept for 11 hours, which was amazing. 7 months. This is a photo of Reed at 7 months. So about a month after we had him on that formula, and as you can see, pretty happy, healthy looking kid now. I still have those, I still look a bit tired, but I think that's just normal parenting tired as opposed to the chaos that we had the month before. So how did the Australian Dads Network get here after all of that? Again, the commitment, the connection, and now we move into community. So for us, for me, it was really a selfish, like was mentioned at the start, really a selfish need for my own personal need for connection, wanting to really get some support, but not having that in the regional area. So I searched and I searched, couldn't find anything. And so that's where I pushed the button on a Facebook group to start my own one. And that's where it really simply started like that. There's no sort of other way to talk through it. We have this, sorry, just quickly jump on there. So that need for connection, that need for community, and that need for support was really what drove what we do inside the Australian Dads Network. We started off with one person, it continued to grow. We have, as you know, with transient populations in regional areas, there is a ton of people that are coming up for, doing school stints or nursing stints or through the army, FIFO, drive-ins, all those kinds of things. And those people come and go. So it was really important that we make sure the Australian landscape is covered. And so from one person, we've now almost got to 2,600 members, which is pretty impressive and important. And we talk everything from, how to change a nappy, how to wrap a muslin cloth around the new bub, teething issues, teenager issues, all the way through to, family law court concerns, and mental health issues, everything in between. It's a really powerful community that we've created, and it comes through from people being open and honest and willing to share, and that's how I think we really can strengthen our communities, is by doing that. We've now started delivering programs inside our community as well, some paid, some free. And it's really powerful. One of the things I think I'll quickly mention is this program that we've just launched, the second program of in June this year. We launched the first one in February. The first one sold out in 24 hours with 10 guys. The second one, we didn't even promote it. It went live and sold out before we even launched it. And that's all around vulnerability. It's all around emotional awareness. And it's all around understanding our subconscious and an ability to quieten our mind. And so why I make that sort of as a really important part of it is that I think we have this, sometimes communities have perception around dads and what their drives are and their desires are. For us to have, if you combine the two programs, almost 25 guys going through this program about quieting the mind and getting to understand our emotions and being vulnerable amongst a bunch of other guys shows where our community is and where the safety of our community is, but also where dads are willing to put their feet in to try new things. I think it's a really powerful way that they're showing up at the moment. We hold local meetups in the areas, and as we continue to develop those connections in local areas and the funds to be able to support them, we do that, which is really awesome as well. And we hold regular group calls inside of our community as well. There's some of you guys might recognise that pub. I can't remember the name of it, but it is down in Perth. Just a general catch up for the guys, just to catch up and have some drinks and some food. And the really empowering thing and the really inspiring thing is guys are repping our ADN merch around too, which is really awesome, because it just shows the pride that they have, that they're willing to wear this brand and wear this message. And because what that is very much a talking point. When you're standing in the queue somewhere and you've got that shirt on, guys talk about how many people come up and say, "What is this about?" And it starts a connection at the local level. So almost 2,600 members. All we ask of them is really one simple thing. Try and learn something or do something that's going to make you just that 1% better every single day. 1% better than what you were yesterday, emotionally, mentally, physically, whatever it might be. And the other plus there is that 80%. So out of that almost 2,600 guys, we've got an 80% engagement rate inside that community. So it's about just under 2,000 members actively involved in this community. That's either looking through the posts, interacting with the posts, watching the videos that the guys share. It's really impressive stat, I believe. Why it's important. The cycle of depression can be one of those things that really that guys really struggle with, especially new dads. Get into that stressful state, you start to withdraw from those groups that you've been in the past. Maybe it's the cricket club or the footy club. You start to withdraw from those areas, potentially moves into some risk behaviours, substance use to try and drown out some of the noise that's in our heads, and then continue along. We disconnect ourselves from our social networks. The Australian Dads Network, I believe, we can break that cycle by increasing our connection, giving guys the opportunity to increase their connection via a virtual means, and also creating that community helps with that social withdrawal, bringing people back together, supporting them to be able to connect them locally in their local area. The beautiful thing with Facebook is that it gives us a bit of a shield, so we can start to become vulnerable via the Facebook group, understand that there's some trust in there that we have. So to the point where guys are catching up locally for a coffee or whatever it is, they've already broken down some of those barriers. And so it's a lot easier to have that conversation with somebody where you already know that they know what the process is and how we can support each other. So those three things: community, connection, and commitment. It's been on reflection. It's been one of those things that has been stuck with me for my life and through my journey as an adult. And I continue to really reinforce these three messages with myself and understand why I need to continue doing this, but also it's now become a really strong talking point for the Australian Dads Network as well. This simple message here, I think, is one of those things that is really prevalent inside our community, making sure that we're lifting ourselves up so that we can support the others around us. I think that's a really important message as well. So, any dads out there, or if you know of any dads, the Facebook community is where the magic is and where the action is. You can just jump on Facebook, you can search Australian Dads Network and become a part of the most engaged group of dads in Australia. And for any of those new dads out there that are looking for 5 mistakes not to make, you can scan this little QR code here and it'll get you a free ebook on what we believe is those 5 mistakes that new dads make. And if you avoid those, then it'll help you thrive in all areas of your life. And that's it. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to do this via Zoom. I really wish I was down there with you guys, but unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, I'm up here in Geraldton doing some presentations very similar to this as well. So I really thank ConnectGroups for the opportunity to be able to jump on here and talk to you guys about the Australian Dads Network.
Thank you, Liam. I'm just using the laptop sound, so apologies you can't see us. We just had a bit of reverb on our main camera and mic in the room. But does anybody in the room here today have a question, or if anybody on Zoom has a question, please pop it into the chat and Liam can respond directly. Any questions? Abby wants to know where she can get a shirt.
Oh, what, like the one I'm wearing now?
Sure, any of them.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. We've had a couple of guys ask just in the last 2 days when we're doing our next rounds of shirts. Usually we do like a pre-order inside the community just to ensure that we've got some interest, and now that we've got some, we'll probably do those. We don't have stocks of shirts, unfortunately, but definitely get my email, and I will make sure that we put you on the list and get you some shirts for sure.
Great, thank you.
Liam, thanks for your work that you're doing. Liam, I wonder if I could ask you a question. Do you get any support, or how do you connect with some of the resource companies up around Karratha, or is it more from the local community, from local government?
Yeah, so one of the things I didn't mention there is almost 2 years ago we were registered as a charity. So that's helped us with the ability to be able to start to connect with local governments and get some of that funding. We haven't actively gone out too much and sourced that at this stage. We really want to focus on how we can make the best impact possible with any funding that we do get. The resource companies, we've had some sponsorship from the likes of Yarra, and EDL, which has been really supportive. And so I think it's just a matter of us getting out there and having the right thing, or the right ask, I suppose. And at this stage, we're really looking for those really key things that we want to be able to achieve for before we go out and ask for those dollars, I suppose. We've got big plans for 2023, and from this tour that we're doing now with the myself through the Australian Dads Network and Lockie Samuel from FIFO Mental Health Guy, we're doing the regional tour of WA for men's mental health. I believe this is a really great opportunity for us to get some traction especially in the regional areas, to be able to support some more dads, and we've seen it already over even the last 3 days that we've been doing this in Geraldton and Mount Magnet, that there's a real need for some greater connection at a local level.
Thanks, Liam. And I'm not sure if you can see Lynn's query in the chat there. She's asked if you have granddads joining, especially those raising grandkids.
Yeah, for sure. So from the ages of, so our group's got the ages of 18 up to 67. So we do have granddads in the group. We've got granddads, 2 of our 8 committee members on our board are granddads as well. So those guys are extremely valuable for our community. There's some really wise heads inside the community that have been through a lot and can support with their experience. So yeah, granddads definitely in the mix. And the real power to a lot of this is that a lot of those guys have been invited to the group via their sons. And we have guys that are inviting their brothers and their uncles and all their mates. So it shows where there's that level of trust and now bringing people in, family and friends. So yeah, it's definitely, we have granddads in the group. Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions in the room or on Zoom? Yes, got a question from Andy.
Hi, Liam. It's Cockney. How you doing, buddy?
Good, mate.
Yeah, it's great. It's nice to ask about the grandparents, and I suppose another group who need a lot of support are estranged fathers or fathers who aren't in the family environment. So I take it that's probably quite a big hit that you have as well. So it's great to see that it's not just for new fathers and newborns, it's the grandparents and also sort of helping build those relationships with families as well. So do you have many of those sort of guys in the group?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, yeah, it's a hugely vast and diverse group of guys, and even when we're talking culturally as well, it's a really diverse group. And so, as far as dads who have been separated or estranged from their kids, that is probably one of the unfortunately, it's a large demographic of the group that have been through or are going through those challenges. And so, it obviously it's something that we, it's not an amazing thing to have to go through for the guys. And so we're not legal experts in the family law court in particular, but offering that support and for the guys to make sure that as they're going through these processes, as they're going up to whether it's a week or 2 or 3 years where one of the guys hasn't seen their kids and some guys don't even know where they are, just supporting them with those little things, like making sure that they're looking after themselves physically, mentally, emotionally. A lot of the guys that are going through that program have got experience with that as well in the family law court and all that. So yeah, definitely we do make sure that we're paying attention to all the needs of all the dads, and yeah, we're not just focused on one particular group of dad, that's for sure.
I
say, like a non-equal everything you're saying about community interaction just helps to bring to. And also the other thing as well on those sides of the groups like your own is that you can be the rational view on a very emotive subject. So parenting is very difficult to be explained side of the bits and pieces. Given the lived experience in the group and the bits and pieces, we're in a position to be able to say, yeah, okay, take a step back and deep breath. We've seen that, we can do that. That's awesome. Thanks a lot.
Liam, we've also got a question in the chat, if you can see there from Bertha. Sorry, just drop down there. Got a novel there. Where we got? Yeah, Bertha said, is there any chance of making a network like this in other countries, such as Indonesia? How do you get something like that started, and what are the necessary and crucial components?
Yeah, awesome. I mean, definitely we've got members overseas as well. We've got members in Europe, the UK, and also in Canada and the States. Either they're expats or they are guys that I've just heard have just dropped in from from those areas that just like our message. So there's definitely opportunity to start these kinds of networks anywhere. I mean, for me, it was, you heard the reason why that all started for me. What are the necessary crucial components? I suppose it's just that capacity, the drive to be able to, especially starting off. That first couple of years was really hard. There was a lot of challenges with making sure that the conversations were supportive and encouraging and focused around guys being open-minded, being real about who they are, being real about their emotions and being vulnerable, and that took some time to get to that point, to the point now where the group, even with almost 2,600 members, doesn't need moderating at all. It's done by the guys in the group. So as soon as something happens, it's really handled well. So that would be one of the things, I suppose, if you're going to start one, would just be to just be patient, understand the purpose of what you're trying to do there. That mission is to focus on creating connections, or whatever in your particular case it might be, and just making sure that even when it does get hard, if that mission is strong and that purpose is strong, don't push the stop button, because I was about to push the stop button many times, and at those particular moments when I was about to do that, when I was burning out and stressed and doing all these different things, that's when I got a message from someone that said, I really appreciate what this Dad's Network's all about, because it's helped me in so many ways, and there's so many examples I could give you that I've had those messages at the right time. So yeah, I encourage you, or whoever that might want to start something like this, is just be patient and know why you're doing it.
Thanks, Liam. And just to add to that, Bertha, as well, ConnectGroups does have some resources on our website on starting a support group or a community group. And we are also very soon launching a resource around creating a Facebook or an online support group. That's going to be happening over the next month, so we'll keep you updated on that. That's actually been informed by the sector, so informed by our online groups. You can see in the chat here, Diane's also asked about the recording. We have recorded today's session, Diane, and we're hoping to have that up on our socials and circulated to those who attended today early next week. I've just got to do a quick edit and whatnot, so I'll get that organised as quick as I can so that you can share that with your networks. We'll also circulate both Liam and